Good morning, 6th grade. Mr. Hale here. I hope you are doing well and that you had a relaxing Easter weekend. Today, just a few things that I want to talk about before we get to the lesson. Number one, there wasn't any homework yesterday or last Friday because of the Easter holiday. Number two, I have graded last week Monday and last week Tuesday's work on OneNote and put those grades into Praxis School. If you didn't do that work, you will see that it is listed as incomplete, and I'll be working with Miss Clark and Mrs. Chapman to figure out how to get you caught up on that missing work. I've also uploaded the correct answers to Monday's work and to Tuesday's work into your homework folder on OneNote. So if you did the homework last week, you can compare your answers to Monday and Tuesday's work to the correct answers that I've now uploaded. Okay, let's talk about something that, my apologies, I assumed that you guys had been taught in previous grades, and a couple of you have come to me and said that you had not. So let's talk about ratios. Ratios are a way of comparing two amounts of something. So if you have a bowl of fruit and you have 6 apples and 4 oranges, the ratio of apples to oranges is 6 to 4. Now, just like a fraction, a ratio can be simplified. 6 and 4 are both even, so we could simplify that down by dividing by 2, and we would say 3 to 2. Let's look at an example from an old worksheet or an old test from a couple years ago. At a recent St. Ignatius high school basketball game, tickets were sold as follows. There were 48 high schoolers, 96 adults bought tickets, and there were 38 children, 8th grade or younger. We want to know, in number one, the ratio of high schoolers to children in simplest form. Well, let's start out by not doing this in simplest form. Let's just look at the number of high schoolers and the number of children. So first, how many high schoolers are there? 48. So just write that down. Write down the number 48 for the number of high schoolers. Second, we want to know the number of children. 32. So I'm going to write that down over here. And then this is what makes a ratio a ratio. We are comparing high schoolers to children, and the word to in between them in math is represented by a colon, 2 dots on top of each other. On your keyboard, that's going to be over by the enter button just to the right of the L. Now, 48 to 32 is the correct ratio of high schoolers to children. And if you put that down on your work, I would give you half credit for the answer. But there's an important clause here. I want it in simplest form. So let's look at 48 and 32. Well, we know off the top, those are both even numbers. So we could divide them both by 2. But that's not going to give us simplest form. What else can both 48 and 32 be divided by? They can both be divided by 4, but that's not going to give us simplest form. They can both be divided by 8. That would get us pretty close. But 48 and 32, if we go through our factors here, both of these can be divided by 16. So if we divide 48 by 16, we get 3. And if we divide 32 by 16, we get 2. So, the ratio of high schoolers to children, the comparison between the number of high schoolers and the number of children at this game is 48 high schoolers to 32 children. Simplified by dividing by 16, this simplifies down to a ratio of 3 to 2. There are 3 high schoolers for every child. All right, let's move on. Let's look at number 2. Number 2, we've got the ratio adults to non-adults in simplest form. Well, we're given the number of adults. We know there are 96 adults. Let's go ahead and put our colon in the middle. Now, this says non-adults, but there's no listing up in the description of non-adults. We have high schoolers, children, and adults. Well, non means not. So, when we say non-adults, we want the number of people at the game who are not adults, which would include all of the children and all of the high schoolers. So 48 high schoolers and 32 children, all of them are not adults. So we'd add those two numbers together. That's going to be 48 plus 32 is 80. And once again, we need to simplify. 96 to 80 is the true ratio of adults compared to non-adults. But both of these numbers can be simplified. And once again, we're going to simplify by 16. 96 divided by 16 is 6. And 80 divided by 16 is 5. So your true ratio of adults to non-adults is 96 to 80, and that is simplified to 6 to 5. There are 6 adults for every 5 non-adults. Okay, number 3. What is the ratio of children to total tickets sold? Okay, so children, we know from up here, is 32. Put our colon in the middle. And then total tickets sold. Just like non-adults in number 2, this is not something that is explicitly given to us in the description, but I think we can figure out this number just by what it's asking us to find. We want to know the total number of people at the basketball game. So we're going to add up all the tickets sold. 48 plus 96 plus 32. We know that 48 plus 32 is 80, plus 96, that's going to give us 100. Oops, hold on. I need to erase that. That's not where that goes. That's going to give us, oops, I got to bring the pen back. 176 total tickets sold. And as you can guess, this can be simplified. So, 32 and 176, it just happens to be a coincidence in this example set of problems that all of the numbers we're running into can be divided by 16. In your homework and in future work with ratios, that may not be true. You may not be able to simplify, or you may be asked to simplify by 3 or by 20 or by 15. It just happens to be in this set of numbers, it always can be divided by 16. So we're going to simplify these by 16 again. What's 32 divided by 16? Well, that's 2. And 176 divided by 16 simplifies to 11. The reason I put this particular problem in is I want to point out that it doesn't always work that you have the higher number on the left and the lower number on the right, like we did in 1 and 2. It can be the reverse. You can have the smaller number on the left and the bigger number on the right. All you need to do is compare how many are of this group, how many are of this group, put a colon in between. So the true ratio for number 3 is 32 to 176. And that simplifies down to a ratio of 2 children for every 11 tickets sold. All right, example number 4. Adults to high schoolers. How many adults are there? We know that. It's 96. Put our colon in the middle. How many high schoolers are there? We know that. It's 48. Now this one is not going to simplify by 16. We could start out by simplifying by 16. We've already simplified 96 by 16. 96 divided by 6 is 16. And we've already simplified 48 by 16 up in number 1. 48 divided by 16 is 3. But look at those two numbers, 6 and 3. I think those can be simplified even further. Both 6 and 3 can be divided by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And 3 divided by 3 is 1. So the true ratio of adults to high schoolers is 96 to 48. But the simplified ratio is 2 to 1. We actually ended up dividing both of these numbers by 48 to get this simplified ratio. All right, our final example. What is the ratio of children to adults? There are 32 children present. And how many adults? 96. We're going to simplify that down, guess what? By 16. 32 divided by 16 gives us 2. And 96 divided by 16 gives us 6. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. 2 and 6, those are both even. We can simplify this even further. What's 2 divided by 2? 1. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. So, our true ratio of children to adults is 32 to 96, but our simplified ratio is 1 to 3. To wrap up, a ratio is just a comparison between two amounts of things. So the steps to take: write down the actual numbers of each thing, 32 children, 96 adults, put a colon between them. That may be the end of the problem for you. You may not be able to simplify. If you can simplify, you should, just like we do with a fraction. The problems you will see in your homework as soon as I can get it uploaded, because I'm having some technical difficulties, as I emailed about earlier. The problems you see in your homework are going to look a lot like this. In fact, they're going to be the same questions. I've just changed the numbers of high schoolers, adults, and children. So they won't be these exact answers, but they will be the same concepts in the questions. If you have any questions of me, feel free to email me or jump in on my Zoom office hours between 1 and 2:30. Stay home, wash your hands, do your best, and I hope to see you guys soon. Bye.